In this video, I'm going to introduce 3 core concepts to help you get your head around SetSeed when you're using it for the first time. The first thing we're going to talk about is how SetSeed is a multi-site system first and foremost. So from an Apache perspective on the server, what that means is all of the virtual hosts in Apache are sharing the same document root, and that's where the SetSeed application itself is installed. And then SetSeed will serve the right website based on the domain name that's used to access that. And our Linode stack script servers are automatically pre-configured to use certbot to create the Apache config, so the SSL certificates are generated automatically. So every website has a preview domain automatically set up for it. So if you make a new website with the domain name of example.com, you'll be able to immediately view that site on its preview domain, which is where the domain name acts as a subdomain for your server's primary domain, which is this second part here. And of course you can have anything you like as your primary domain, and you set that up when you first install SetSeed. And when you're ready to go live, it's as simple as pointing the live domain at your server, and then SetSeed will serve the website based on the requests coming via that domain name. The beauty of this setup is that you can update the SetSeed application in a single place, and all of your client websites will automatically be on that latest version. So creating a new website is as simple as just going into the websites area in the creator zone, and then entering a new domain name and going ahead and adding the website there. So obviously we're working on a fairly blank website here, so let's go ahead and look at the next thing that I want to talk about in this video, which is our approach to editing a page using our live preview side-by-side editor. To edit any web page, you just go ahead and click the Edit Web Page button, and then you're taken to this area where you've got an editor on the left of the screen and the live preview on the right. Now this system is fully responsive and works just as well on a mobile phone. Whenever the screen is too small to display these side by side, it just uses 2 separate browser tabs, and that's a mechanism that works just as well on a phone as it does on an iPad or even a desktop. You can switch it to use that mode if you want to, and the live preview will continue to refresh automatically as you make the changes in the editor. So one of the main differences between SetSeed's approach and pretty much every other CMS system out there is how we reject the WYSIWYG editor. There are many reasons for this, but first and foremost, it's really just that when you're working with interactive content for a web page, there's no real space for WYSIWYG editors because that content can really be quite dynamic and animated and scrolling or interactive. So it just makes sense to come up with a system where you can work with content no matter what that content is going to end up doing on the web page itself. And that's why this system works really well. So let's just go ahead and add a couple of widgets. So this is a carousel slide widget. Now, this is a widget that works when you have multiple instances of it. And then you can add content inside the editable zones for that. So we've just added some text, and then I'm going to drag and drop that to put it into the second instance of this widget. So now we've got a carousel slide with 2 slides that are automatically scrolling between them. So you can see, obviously, trying to edit this in place with some kind of WYSIWYG editor would be impossible. But with the side-by-side editor, we can make changes on the left and instantly see how it's going to actually look in its final setup inside a carousel slide widget. And you can even drag this divider to see how the web page reacts at different sizes. And of course the nice thing about this is even if you're using it on a phone, this editor experience is basically exactly the same. It's all just a single easy to scroll column with this drag and drop system, and you can even drag this handle to change the position of your selection even if you've had to scroll a long distance first to do that. So you can continue to add items to your page from the insert palette here. All of the things that you can place on a page are available here, and it's just a question of dragging and dropping, remembering that you're dragging onto the editor and not the live preview. Obviously, as part of the process of creating a website for a client, you're going to want to create a custom bespoke theme for their site before you hand it over to them, before they start actually working with content. So to do that, we've got what we call design mode, and this is just a really powerful front-end framework that's completely browser-based and actually lets you create incredible themes all within the browser. And again, we're rejecting the idea of WYSIWYG design tools here, just because this approach is just so much more powerful, and actually once you get your head around it, it's so much faster and simpler to use. So we've always prioritized the distinction between design and content. So your customer doesn't get to see these tools at all. These are purely tools that you use to create the outer template design for those websites before they use the page editing tools to work on their content. A SetSeed website can actually have more than one template if needed, but mostly a single template is actually enough for most websites. At most you might want 2 different templates where you're working with a kind of derivative version for the home page and then a different one for all of the inner templates. And when your customer adds pages, they get to choose which template they want to use to create that given page. That's the point at which that choice is exposed to them. Usually there you only need a single template per site. You can duplicate templates as well, so it's quite easy to create a derivative version of a template. So design mode itself is simply a collection of options and settings, and that lets you enable or disable various sections of that page. So we've got header bars and content bars and footer bars. So these are literally sections in the template that are enabled top to bottom in this order. So you can see we've got header bar 2 that's actually enabled, and that corresponds to this section over on the right. And the area that we added our test content to corresponds to content bar 3, which is the default content area. All of the other content bars can be turned on or off, but content bar 3 is always enabled as the default one. And the reason it's number 3 is because sometimes you might want to go back to a design later if the customer says, oh, can we add a zone above our normal content for a temporary banner or something? This gives you a few options to do that kind of thing. So each of the header and footer bars have the same collection of options that you can work with. And that includes this ability to turn on and off modules in the 3 kind of zones in the header bars. So you've got a left area, a centered area, and a right area. The left and right areas can contain 2 modules, the main one and then a secondary one. And the centered one just has space for a single module. So you can see in this header bar 2, we've got the logo module enabled as the left module here, and we've got the navigation menu module enabled in the right. So we can see what happens if we go ahead and add the secondary right module. Let's go ahead and choose a social icons module, and we can see how that works. So now we've got some social icons that are sitting in line with the navigation menu, and that's because we've got this vertical align option set to middle. But as an example, we could change that to top and bottom, and now we can see these 2 modules are vertically aligned to the top and bottom of the logo itself. And if we change that logo asset to something else, we can see how that works. And if we enable the 2 times, that'll flick the image into Retina kind of display, and we've got the alignment going on there with the navigation menu and the social icons aligned to the logo. So just an example really of how quickly it is just to set up a complete layout like this, just using these browser-based options, and everything remains fully responsive and all the heavy lifting is just going on behind the scenes. So once you've got your modules set up, there are a couple of other options that you can play with here as well, but each of these header and footer bars has a set of options to control the background for that area of the page. So obviously at its simplest form, this can simply just be a selection of color, but you can also upload different images. We'll just use some of these sample stock images here to see what happens. And you can see there's 5 slots. Now, if you upload more than one image, that will become a slideshow that will fade through. And you can do different things with parallax effects as well. And there's even a 3D mode where you can upload slices of an image to represent depth and then switch it into the combined parallax mode to get a 3D scroll effect going on there. So there's all kinds of powerful things you can play with. Or you could choose to have a video as the background there as well. And if you want to allow the customer to change these things themselves, you can actually enable these background choices as site-wide content areas. And we call them site-wide content areas so the customer will know if they change these, they are going to affect the whole site because they're in the header or the footer, which is in contrast, of course, to the content bars. So if we look at content bar 3, we can see we've got a similar set of background options, but instead of site-wide areas to allow the customer to change the items in the backgrounds, we are enabling template sections, which is a page level distinction. So when they're working with an individual page, they can override the backgrounds for the content bars on that page, and it's only that page that those changes will take effect. And you can also give this a name that's meaningful to your customer. So a lot of all of this is about creating a tuned, tailored experience where you're creating a system for the customer to work with their website in a way that's meaningful to them. So unlike header bars, content bars actually have this optional banner area. So above each content bar is this optional banner area that can be enabled by ticking this box. And this is a different kind of area. It's not designed for normal mixed content. It's designed either for a collection of images or a slideshow, or our banner widget system, which allows text to be actually added over the top of an image, and those have different properties that the customer can choose as well. So a sort of specific thing that can be enabled above each content bar as well. So you can actually end up with 20 different sections enabled if you wanted to, but obviously the vast majority of sites wouldn't need that many enabled. And then we've got the setup option at the top, which gives us access to some options, and of course things like custom CSS styles can be added in here as well. The best way of getting used to this is just jumping in and having a play with all these settings and seeing how they change, and it can be handy to make a sort of sample test page where you've added content to each of the content bars, so that when you work with the settings back in design mode, you can see how those changes are taking effect. As always though, we're only an email away. If you have any questions, just send me or Chris an email, and look out for other videos.